Kyle here from All Media Reviews, here to do a review of the new album from the band. I think they're from California, called Codeseven. Go Let It In. But first, just one or two other quick announcements. Discord. I don't know how many people use Discord. I haven't really used it that much until I started using it around the time of COVID. It was probably about the time I signed up, like 2020, something like that. But maybe 2019. I don't remember exactly. But it's sort of like it's a more like modern MRC or chat room, but it's more immediate. It's an alternative to some of the other sort of, manipulated, ad-filled social media platforms. It is a social media platform, and I hope it doesn't change, and it probably has changed, but I hope it doesn't change dramatically. But a lot of people I know use that instead of even using like Instagram or, Twitter. I don't call it X, Twitter or Threads or Blue Sky. I mean, all of those, but Discord seems to be one of my sort of go-to, like Reddit. It's almost like a Reddit, but it's not a message board. It's like a chat room version, but like of Reddit in some ways, but it's not that big. It can be small. Everyone can create their own. It's really an interesting. It's almost more like TikTok, but more for text. But it's not necessarily as youthful based as TikTok, I guess. And I actually will admit that I've started to use TikTok a little bit myself recently. But I created one for All Media Reviews. If you have a Discord and you're interested, I'll probably just like add it when I can figure out how to do that and how the invites work. I'm just All Media Reviews on there. I know it best for a couple of channels I use. I know Notes Reviews on YouTube has a channel that a lot of his supporters. I don't know if it's people that were on the Patreon. It's just a public one. There might be one because Patreon people have their private Discords for Patreon too. But the one that I use for Notes Reviews is, because I'm not part of the Patreon, is a public one. But there's some of the regulars that you've seen comment on his or even been on his channel a few times. But the main one I go to some of the other ones, band-based ones, the Deer Hunter, Dream Theater. There's some other ones. The Warning has one. They have a public one. They have one for the Patreon. I don't use the one for the Patreon. But is this Images and Words one, thanks to a friend of mine named Christian, Frantic Dav as he's known. And that's a really good resource. It has a lot of sub-channels or whatever you want to call them within the Discord. But, it's a different kind of way of doing social media, but I think it's not like it's more text and scrolling, I guess. So maybe it's more designed for phones, even though I pretty much almost entirely have used it on just a browser on my laptop. But it can be used on phones. I need to use it on my phone, but yeah, I'm gonna maybe just post any announcements on there or stuff that videos. I don't know, depending on how. I have a few friends in there right now, but including Christian. But my other thought about it, because it wasn't so much that I wanted a Discord channel of my own, because, Images and Words is a great one. There's like news announcements and gossip and reviews, listening parties, all sorts of stuff in there. It's great, and you can make it big or smaller. But is like the Prog Corner specifically, I think, could potentially benefit from a Discord channel because there's a lot of people he's been able to gather a lot of, just like Notes Reviews, a lot of the sort of prog rock fans on YouTube and music fans on YouTube have found his channel, and we have these streams on Sunday. It would be something to talk about in real time, somewhere to talk in real time, rather than everyone go onto a Facebook chat or a group or something. I don't know. There's a million social media platforms, but there's like 87 social media platforms. It gets to be a little bit much for people to keep up with, but I actually have found, as much as I was doubtful when I first started using Discord, that Discord is easier to use than a lot of Discord and message boards. Honestly, if I could go back in time, I would still use YouTube, but I would use Discord and maybe use that would be it. And maybe go back to the way message, because I used to love message boards, but I still use them. But anyway, so if you have Discord, leave some information. Just say yes, or leave me your handle or something, or let me know if you're interested. But so on to the review. The other short announcement is, the name of that album that I mentioned in the Kevin Gilbert stuff video by the Pneumatic Transit is the Forbidden. It's called Forbidden Trinkets, And again, I'm not going to go into detail. When I do like a 2024 preview, at a minimum, I will go into maybe some more detail about instrumental jazz fusion group. But Jeff Zampillo, formerly of Zaki no Petting Zoo, their second album, and some other projects. But anyway, I'm really I want to talk more about it, and I'm gonna, once the release date comes out at least, or I know it's coming out sometime in January, February. The Forbidden Trinkets by Pneumatic Transit. I know it's a niche thing, but it's I found a really great record that's already coming out next year. So on to the new record from The band's called Codeseven, and I probably should just pick this up because it looks bad. It's called Go Let It In, and this is the first album they've done in 19 years. Their last album, I should have pulled this up, came out in 2004, and I'll fully confess that while I've known their name, Codeseven, my background with Codeseven is I've known their name and I've listened to some of their music in the past. I never rated any of their albums. I wish listed one of them, the last one, Dancing Echoes / Dead Sounds, and that's the most popular record on here for whatever it's worth. But they put out a couple of records. That was 2004, The Rescue in 2002, The Sense of Coalition 98, and Paper of Plastic in 96. I think they're from California. No, they're from North Carolina, actually. So I know they had a connection with Jared from Telescreen / the band I really love that's no more, unfortunately. I don't know if Telescreen's no more either, but probably isn't. Distrails. Distrails, Jared and his wife, Bitsy, doing this really beautiful sort of progressive indie stuff with a lot of strings and stuff and piano. Unfortunately, Bitsy can't play the piano anymore, I believe. But I know that Jared, or I know some of the members of Codeseven were played with Jared and Telescreen. Telescreen toured with Dredg at one point, who I love. Dredg, got their box set right there. You probably can see that with like the image up here, but their box set, their book, the vault, waiting on the next Dredg album. But Codeseven, though, while I haven't heard a whole album before this new album called Go Let It In, I did see live. That was the last time I actually saw Dredg. It's kind of scary. It was now 13 years ago, over 13 years ago, November 17, 2010, with Circa Survive, Animals as leaders, and Dredg, Codeseven played. And I remember liking them. Because I'd known them before that, of course. The Dredg fan base, the fan community on the Traversing message board talked about them, and I'd seen them mentioned among some other people. But I never fully, I never heard a song that I loved by them. But, the fact that I saw them live and I kind of liked them, and then we haven't heard from them, and this is a comeback album. You never know sometimes when a band comes back, they got some different influences that may come in, their production style, their production quality. There's just potential for a refreshing newness and difference and updated sound in some ways that makes you curious oftentimes. When a band I vaguely like, because this happened before. It's also happened before where a band came back, I kind of liked them, and the next album I didn't like anymore. But I can say, though, without question, I like this album more than I expected. I didn't expect to like it that much, and while I can say that its biggest issue for me is that it is kind of samey. Musically, I've been talking for 10 minutes here, and I haven't talked about Codeseven. It's sort of like they're alternative space rock, or are they an Empire band, progressive art rock? I don't know. Dredg are, of course. I mean, art rock, yes. I would call their influences more in the post-hardcore punk and alternative rock, especially alternative rock, but with a spacey element. And yeah, I think there's 10 songs and it's 46 minutes. It's guilty of that. It is kind of a similar kind of sound like Hawkwind, speaking of space rock, or bands that kind of, they're using a lot of the same guitar textures. However, the dynamics and emotion at points on this record, there's little bits that really stand out that oh wow, I love that part. The wall of sound, the wall of sound at the end of the second to last track, Suspect, is awesome. And I felt like when I first listened, I kind of got lost in it and just how in the world is this good? It's a cool trip. I mean, is it mood music? Yes. A lot of albums I'll say this year, not spoiling anything for the albums of the year list, have been mood albums, unfortunately. But for this kind of thing, and I think maybe part of it for me is that with Dredg, we haven't had new music from them, and, We're going to get Van Art probably next year. Some of this kind of stuff, the kind of textured, heavy rock music that I've grown to love a lot of, has been not as noticeable and found the last 5 to 10 years especially. Just Dredg alone. So hearing this, while it's not Dredg, I absolutely adore Dredg. I don't think this album is on the same plateau as most of my favorite Dredg albums. It kind of fills that void, that whatever you want to call it, that yearning, that itch for something in that kind of spacey rock, alternative rock that Dredg, Dredg is progressive and a lot of other things too, but in other words, it's kind of filling in for Dredg until we get Dredg. But the vocals are kind of, sometimes he sounds a little bit like Daniel Johns, a little bit like Falling Up. I mean, Falling Up is in, what do you describe Falling Up other than the Christian element, which is really not that present after their second or third album. But that heavy rock with a lot of cool guitar textures and spacey elements. In that kind of vein. So, it's a little like Silverchair and Falling Up and Dredg, and a little bit like that band Bean, Bean unfortunately was using too much djent for me to get into them. But, like a few of the bands that people compare to Mew that were like heavier, but I never got that into those, like Idola and Vola. I really think it flows really well. It's cohesive. The production isn't too bad. A lot of these modern albums, they have some productions too hot, even though you think with modern technology it would be improved. The earlier Codeseven records, I think that was part of my issue, was just beyond even the approach. The production is a little too hot, the cymbals are too clipped at points, and the guitars were, clipping. I don't really get that as much as this is heavy, but it's not metal at all. It's just like Laissez-Faire, Hush Then a Riot. The ending of that song is awesome. Rough Seas. The last two tracks especially, Suspect and Go Let In, are my go-tos. Actually, it's not dramatically that dissimilar to even Giant Sky's new album. Now, I mean, they came out the same day. There's a lot of differences, but they share the space rock element. So we got two of the best, quote-unquote, albums that use space rock, or space rock albums, that came out the same day on December 1st. So that's my take on Codeseven. I know they're an unknown band, so who knows how many people will find this video right away. But yeah, it certainly will find a place on my end-of-year list. I've listened to it, I don't know how many times, 5 or 6 times at this point. But if you haven't listened to it, check it out. But if you have, what are your thoughts? I can probably leave like a Spotify link underneath. And again, if you have any thoughts about Discord, I'd love to hear them. But anyway, thank you for watching. Again, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and we'll see you next time.